Good morning, everybody. This is Maria Elena Ginet from the Border Environment Cooperation Commission. And we're thrilled to invite you and that you're participating in our first ever webinar. The BEC, as many of you know, I'm going to be doing a brief introduction as to what the BEC is because I'm not quite sure how familiar our audience is. Or in those who are familiar, I don't know how familiar they are with our recent accomplishments either. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Okay. I'm going to start with this overview. Then I will be passing the microphone to J.T. O'Brien, who is really the person at the BEC who led this process. And from there, we'll go on to the consultant who completed the study. But the Border Environment Cooperation Commission and the North American Development Bank, as many of you know, were created out of NAFTA. And we're here to support communities in preserving, protecting, and enhancing the environment through environmental infrastructure. Next slide, please. Our sectors, as you can see here, are many. But really what I want to highlight here is that this study with regards to air is related to our air quality sector. And not only that, we also know that out of all of the populations, we have about 226 municipalities that we have within our area of jurisdiction, which is 100 kilometers north and 300 kilometers south. We know that a significant portion, probably on the order of 150, are rural communities. And so we realize that a need for this type of study will be very important to them. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here are just as a brief overview of what we've done. We've actually certified 246 projects with benefiting a population of 17.5 million with a total investment of 8.65. And that's the bricks and mortar part of what we do. But the other element that we do is also technical assistance and capacity building. And as you can see here is that we've given out between the two institutions about $80 million or close to $80 million in technical assistance, as well as held numerous seminars, and like I said, this is our first webinar. And this effort here today is precisely within our pillar of technical assistance. If we can go to the next slide, please. So at this point, I'm going to pass the speaking to J.T. O'Brien. J.T. O'Brien is one of our project managers here at the BEC that has extensive experience in working with rural communities, and in fact, many of the projects that he's working on are with respect to rural communities. And he was able to identify this need based on communications he had received not only from the communities but also from congressional offices. So JT, if you would like to take the lead from here, I would greatly appreciate it.
Okay, great. So I'll just give you a little background on how we started this process of looking at these paving alternatives. Originally, Luna County sought help through Senator Udall's office for looking at dust control along a specific road out there. And then as we started talking with Luna County, and then we started talking with the other, with Senator Pierce's office and Senator Heinrich's office, we realized that this problem was endemic throughout New Mexico and throughout the border region. And so we developed a scope for looking at fugitive dust control along county roads along the entire border region. But one of our biggest issues was that even though asphalt paving is really a very effective means of dust control, it's just too expensive. I mean, for example, in Luna County, the road we're looking at is 20 miles long, and it's not a heavily used road. It's primarily a ranch road with a lot of Border Patrol traffic. So we knew that we needed to come up with alternatives that would be more cost-effective. So those were kind of the primary motivations for this. Could you go to the next one? Of course, the motivation then was to improve air quality. That fits within one of our sectors, And the scope then was to provide guidance for roadway managers in the border counties for looking at different techniques, strategies for dust abatement. And as part of that strategy, our scope then looked at several sites in the region. So the sites were selected because they had different types of issues. For example, cattle on the rural roads or heavy equipment on a military base, residential type traffic, and let's see, they were just selected to provide a variety of situations that roadway managers might encounter. After we scoped it, then Kimley Horn was selected as the consulting engineer to perform the analysis, and then they helped further hash out some of our scope. Kimley Horn is a national organization with 70 offices. They provide a lot of services in a variety of disciplines. Today's speakers are Scott Altair and Alan Hathcock. Scott Altair was very instrumental in helping us select sites because he's worked on the border for the past 17 years, so he knows the border region really well and has a lot of experience in particularly this issue of dirt roads and dust control. And then Alan Hathcock was the project manager, and he has a lot of expertise in roadways as well, and really did the nuts and bolts work on this study. So at this point, I guess I can pass the speaking over to them.
Thank you, JT. While we get our presentation up, are you seeing the introduction screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great.
We can see your presentation now.
Okay. Okay. So thank you, JT. The name of our presentation is Abatement of Fugitive Dust in the Border Region. Again, my name is Scott Altair. My role is going to be to take you through the background, the scope of study, and research into dust abatement methods. And then I'm going to pass the presentation off to my partner, Alan, here to discuss the analysis and recommendations component. Okay, I'm not able to advance the slide here. Okay, there we go. So, just like JT gave you a little background, this is a little bit more technical background on the project before we get going. What is fugitive dust? Well, fugitive dust is defined as particulate matter suspended in air by wind action and human activities. There's a couple different originations of fugitive dust. Roads is just one of them, and this particular study focused just on fugitive dust from roads. And state laws that are on the books all help agencies and owners to stay in compliance with the Clean Air Act. Both the Environmental Protection Agency, New Mexico Department of Environmental Quality, and Arizona Department of Environmental Quality have identified particulate matter non-attainment areas. Now, particulate matter is a term you're going to hear throughout this presentation. Particulate matter is basically suspended soil, and so when they have a non-attainment area, there are thresholds that do not meet the minimum standards for air quality, and there are certain thresholds for particulate matter 10 and particulate matter 2.5 that have been identified, and each of the states have an implementation plan which includes strategies, statutes, and rules to help bring these areas back into enforcement. Now, when we talk about the study region, We've got 5 sites, as JT mentioned, 2 in New Mexico and 3 in Arizona. None of these are in a PM non-attainment area. However, Camino Embarcadero, which is bottom left in Santa Cruz County, is very close. It's just outside of the Nogales, Arizona non-attainment area. So, scope of study. The study basically can be broken down into 3 components, and these are listed here. The existing conditions analysis is where we started. That's where we documented site conditions, the climate of each of the sites, who's using the road, what the traffic is like, the quantity of traffic. We also interviewed the road owners to find out what's been working, what has been working. Then we moved into the research and assessment component. The research and assessment was where we identified available abatement methods, documented the benefits, limitations, cost, and lifespan of the options to treat dust. And then finally, we moved into the results stage where we determined the cost to apply a particular dust abatement method, how many applications are required, is it effective, and if it is effective, how cost effective is it? And then we concluded it with a recommendation for each of the sites. So that's a little bit about what the study is going to show you and document. Now let's go into each of the study sites. So each of the study sites that we selected is approximately a 2-mile segment. So it's a 2-mile test segment. The study sites were chosen collaboratively by Beck and Kimley Horn with the input of local entities to provide a diverse set of study sites that will provide a good cross-section of the border region. And our first site that you're looking at here is Camino Embarcadero, which lies in Santa Cruz County, Arizona. Some unique characteristics of this site is it's hilly terrain. It has significant drainage. It is in a suburban residential area, and it has higher traffic volumes than the rest of the sites. In addition, this is a growing area of Rio Rico. It's sure to experience the pressures of growth as many of the subdivision lots remain vacant but are developable in the future. And again, this is just outside of the PM10 area. Our second site is Hidalgo County, New Mexico, County Road CO01. This site sits just south of Animas, New Mexico, in the Boot Hill region of the state. Some of the unique characteristics here is it's very rural, as you can see by those photos. It's unfenced grazing range, and it has higher patrol-related traffic and a commuting element. And one of the things we identified is the shift changes with Border Patrol can generate some dusty periods as patrol units are commuting from their forward operating bases back to the station. The next site is New Frontier Drive in Luna County, New Mexico. Some unique characteristics of this site are the adjacent agriculture, again, unfenced grazing range, and poor drainage. Now, this site lies just south of Deming. One of the unique characteristics of this road is the ambient dust from off-site, in other words, not generated from the road, settles on the road. This is in one of the dust advisory areas along the I-10 corridor that they have a lot of closures due to dust, and that ambient dust does tend to settle on the road and then gets kicked back up. Cattle drink in the roadside ditches. The roadside ditches don't drain very well and will collect water, and the cattle congregate and then break down the road surface, which then leads to more dust and particulate matter in the air. And then staff also has to be careful along this section of road because they have invasive African rue, and any type of work they do along there have to be careful about spreading that seed. The fourth study site is on Fort Huachuca, Arizona. There were several roads that combined to make up a 2-mile study segment. Unique characteristics here is this is a restricted installation. There's no public traffic. It's mainly construction traffic. While it's low traffic, it's usually heavy equipment. And they have an established watering policy in effect for all contracting work. So this particular site is unique also in that they don't have their own road maintenance. It's all contractor-owned, contractor-operated, and again, they do have an established construction watering program in effect. The last site, the fifth site, is in Tucson, Arizona. It's probably our most urban site. This is a campus arm of the University of Arizona. Some of the unique characteristics here are that the roads are private, limited access. We have solar arrays, if you can see in that picture in the bottom right corner there. These panels get covered with dust through the dry periods. And it is the closest site to a major urban area, which is something that we take into account when we get into the costing and analysis phase, because obviously being closer to an urban area, the cost of things are probably going to be more cost effective. Also, any kind of maintenance done on this particular site is contractor-owned, contractor-operated. They do not have their own staff. Okay, and to wrap up the study sites, we met with each of the site owners or road managers, and we interviewed the road owners to learn things like, are you grading your roads? If so, how often? What's your climate like? What materials and equipment do you have on hand, and what has worked in the past? What have you tried? Have you tried any products? Have you tried any methods? And this is basically just a screenshot of what that questionnaire looked like. There was a lot more questions we asked, and it was very helpful to get an understanding of their challenges and actually some of the resources that they had. So moving on into the research component of the project, this is where we identified all the dust abatement alternatives. And from our interviews and research, we compiled a list of methods of dust abatement. And for purposes of simplifying the analysis, we categorized these into 3 categories: material methods, administrative methods, and chemical methods. Now I'm gonna list each of these off here. In the material methods, this is where we would be physically altering a roadway by adding a product to the surface. This is improving roadway design, recycled asphalt millings, chip seal, and paving. Those are all done above the existing surface. Administrative methods would be employing tactics such as reducing speed limits or restricting access based on using policy. Chemical methods would be any method that alters the chemistry of the soil but does not affect or does not alter the surface of the roadway. And this is where we have surfactants, moisture-absorbing products, organic petroleum products, organic non-petroleum products, polymers, and electrochemical stabilizers. That would be like bentonite, for example. Now, we're not listing any proprietary. There are a lot of proprietary products there, so these are all they're non-proprietary names. When you go and look for these products on the market, they all have very clever names and that are catchy. So you won't hear us use any of those names today. So I want to go through each of the categories. This would be the material category, and just show you an example. Chip seal is a material category. Chip seal is a bituminous treatment consisting of aggregate and emulsions. It's applied by agency crews or by contract if you don't have the equipment to do so. It's classified as a material because it's physically altering and it seals the surface with a material applied on top. This picture here is from Hidalgo County, and this is the same road, but it's further north in a section that they just had chip sealed. Now, in the administrative category, reducing speed limits, here's an example on Fort Huachuca where they've employed a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. Not all public agencies have the flexibility to do this, as state law generally governs the application, posting, and enforcing of speed limits. Sometimes if you can't alter the speed limit, advisory speeds or advisory placards on advanced warning signs may be allowed. In Arizona, state statutes allow the local authorities to reduce the speeds to 15 miles per hour for air quality reasons. But in the border regions, you'd have to check each of your local statutes to see if that's allowed. In the chemical category, we're showing here a synthetic polymer. This one that's being applied here is a proprietary synthetic polymer, and it's applied to a desert road. This falls into the chemical groups because it's altering the chemistry of the soil. So these are the three categories that we looked at. And before I hand things over to Alan, this slide you're looking at right here is from section 3.5 of the study. It's a matrix, and we list each of the dust abatement treatment options. And this is just one page of it. And what you're looking at here is synthetic polymer products and clay additives. And we categorize these by listing the benefits, limitations, initial application cost. So we want to differentiate between the initial application cost and then the continuing maintenance cost. They're two separate items. We also list what the effective lifespan and then how available are these products in each of the areas. Now, just for example, clay additives. Well, any road manager may know too much clay is not a good thing for your roadway. So used in the wrong proportions, this can cause rutting and deformation of the road. Bentonite has been very successful on limestone roads, limestone treated roads. Now, so you'd need to make sure, and that's the purpose of this matrix, is for you to go in and make sure that this is the appropriate method before you go and try it. Because if you have the wrong soil chemistry, you may not want to use this. So now I'm going to hand the presentation over to Alan Hathcock, and he's going to discuss the analysis and recommendations going forward.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Our analysis included the costing of these items and then also projecting that over time and trying to come up with a way to see which is the most cost-effective thing to apply to reduce dust on the different roads throughout the border region. This first slide here I wanted to share. These are the 9 different applications that we included in our cost analysis. So the first one is watering. The next 5 are within that chemical category, and the last 3 are within the material category. And all of the following charts and things will be in the same order. So as we look at them, you'll be able to kind of sort through that. Now, again, Scott mentioned there could be many manufacturers that do calcium chloride or the other things. We're just comparing the different costs between the different methods, not between manufacturers. On this next slide, you'll see that we have a general pricing and then the last 3 bullets. I want to specify the general pricing would be the cost to lay a product or an application along 2 miles of road, 24 feet wide. But it would be pricing that anybody would have to pay, no matter where you are along the border region. The last 3 bullets are more like pricing factors, things that would impact that starting cost and make it either more or less. So those three factors would be proximity to the manufacturer of the product, so shipping costs. Could also be proximity to your nearest water source to be able to apply the product. Other things are if you have in-house labor and equipment versus hiring out to a contractor. And then another factor that changes cost between the five different sites would be the traffic volume and how often you have to apply the dust abatement methods. So the higher the traffic greatly impacts how often you have to place the material or the method. So here's an initial cost example, and so we wanted to include these so they're a tool for anybody to go in and kind of go through the same process that we did. So the information for all 9 types, for all 5 sites, are included in Appendix L of the study. Up in the top right corner in the box there, you'll see that we have our assumed costs for labor and for equipment. And then over to the left top, you'll see that we're analyzing calcium chloride, and we show the rate, the length, the width, the area, the application rate of this, and come up with a cost just for the product. Then the application labor cost, we assume some time frames of how long it would take to do the work, and then equipment. So in the middle of the screen, you'll see general pricing, $23,760. So that's the base cost to lay down calcium chloride. Then you'll see right below that, due to different traffic volumes, each location has a different lifespan. And over to the right, Scott mentioned earlier, Santa Cruz County has a higher traffic than the other 4 sites, but they all are different. They vary. So Santa Cruz County, we estimated that it would probably be 1 month before you'd have to reapply calcium chloride. And Hidalgo County is 6 months, Luna County 3, and then Fort Huachuca and U of A, because they have the least traffic, every 12 months. That factor goes down to the bottom chart where we want to come up with an annual cost. And so that annual cost is in blue there, and it starts to show how, because of the traffic, the drainage, the uses of the road, the protection, and the climate, those all impact the actual cost of the abatement methods, and in this case, calcium chloride. So performing that analysis, cost analysis for each site and each type of abatement method, we come up with this first chart. And you'll notice that for recycled millings and paving, for instance, they're off the chart. So we've included the numbers. That's $156,000 to lay down recycled millings for Santa Cruz County. So that's to lay the product down for 2 miles 1 time. So you can see that watering, you can hardly even see it. In the very beginning of each of those, it's just probably $1,000. But the initial cost isn't what's so important until we start to apply the amount of time laid down. So here's a short list of, and the text says why they need to be done more often for the different types of applications. But watering every 1 to 2 days, calcium chloride, so all of the chemical treatments there's a wide range for those depending on the use of your roadway. And then up to the recycled millings can last up to 8 years, chip seal can last up to 10 years, and asphalt paving up to 20 years. When we take this factor of how long things last and then the cost to place them, we come up with this next chart, the annualized cost of dust abatement methods, and it says the yearly treatment divided by the service life. So now we see paving is moving down. It's equalizing the cost of these items if it's on a yearly basis. But just laying the product on the ground and figure out how long it will last still doesn't say how effective that product is. Anybody would say pavement is probably going to block more dust than a chemical treatment. And so what we had to do was we had to analyze the effectiveness of those abatement methods. And using ADOT and FHWA methodology, we were able to use their categories that they prescribe for, and they do for water trucks, chemical and polymer treatments, and hard surface treatments. So just like the itemized cost estimate at each site, we also have an itemized PM10 calculation for each site. And so what it does is it calculates the amount of traffic, or we input the amount of traffic and then the length of the road, and then using the rates and things from their calculator, you can come up with the amount of the kilograms of dust in the air. And then it will also calculate the amount of the emissions reduction each year if you apply a certain one of those three categories. So in this example, if you go to the bottom, it calculates the annual emission reductions. And then in cost-benefit analysis at the far bottom right corner, it comes up with $1 per kilogram of dust. So if you were to place, so like first we have a total project cost over to the bottom left of $26,000, and it would last 8 years, the number of kilograms you would reduce, and then you calculate the dollars per gram. So following that same methodology, now we can apply, well here's the chart showing the PM reductions. So you see how Santa Cruz County, when they apply a pavement, they have the opportunity to reduce more particulate matter from the air. Whereas the other counties have less traffic, or the other installations I should say, have less traffic, and so if they put pavement down, they're still only going to be able to reduce a certain amount of dust from the air. And now we put all three together, which is really the point of all this. The cost effectiveness of dust abatement methods. So we're taking the annualized cost for a 2-mile segment, and we're dividing it by the amount of dust removed from the air. So over to the left, so it's basically dollars per kilogram. So if you spend a certain amount of dollars per kilogram, that's for your dust abatement method. Now from this chart, we can see over to the right that chip seal and paving, like for Santa Cruz County, for instance, paving looks like a very good option. The lower the shorter the bar, the less money you're paying per dust removed from the air. But it's also very expensive up front. The initial cost is very high. And so, but you can also see how the chart varies depending on those in-house operations, maintenance crews, climate, all those things have made it to where each of the 5 sites actually have a different pattern. It's not like chemical treatments are always more expensive than some other treatments. Again, the key about this chart, though, is that it's annualized cost. So, for instance, for pavement, we took and divided by 20-year life. And water, we multiplied by the times you'd have to do for a full entire year. I'd like to turn the time over to Scott, and he'll go through our final recommendations.
Thanks, Alan. So what you're looking at here is our results matrix, which for each site, we wanted to make 2 recommended treatments based on the interpretation of the results. And you can see in the second column, we have recommended dust treatment number 1, and you'll see that chip seal is recommended as the preferred dust treatment for both Santa Cruz County and Luna County, and calcium chloride is the recommended treatment for the other 3. Now, going back to this chart here, you may ask the question, well, why is chip seal, which appears to be the most cost-effective treatment, why is it not recommended for all 5 sites? Well, that's a very good question, and it all relates back to the initial cost or initial investment. So what I'd like to do is take a segue here and make an analogy of the chip seal treatment or paving treatment to a purchase of a hybrid vehicle. So if somebody was going out to buy a hybrid vehicle, we know that the gas mileage efficiency is significantly better in a hybrid vehicle, but the purchase price of a hybrid is more expensive up front. So it's going to require a higher initial investment. Not everyone probably has the budget to buy a hybrid, and it probably shouldn't be. You probably shouldn't buy a hybrid unless you drive a lot. So if you don't drive that much, you're not going to reap the benefits of the gas efficiency. So we apply that same analogy to the selection of these products here. Chip seal is very cost effective in what we've determined here based on It basically gets the same amount of PM reduction as a asphalt paving, but it's more cost effective. But it has a high initial cost. Santa Cruz County and Luna County happen to have the crews and the equipment to lay that down. So when making this decision, if you're a road owner or a road operator and you're trying to decide what product you need to do, you need to also determine what are your internal resources, because contracting for chip seal may not be very cost effective and may not fit your particular budget. So in conclusion, we've recommended or made recommendations based on trying to understand each of the site owners' capabilities and resources. We made it clear that the most cost-effective is not always the most practical and doesn't always consider the availability of startup funds. It's hopeful that other entities can use this study as a starting point and find comparable study sites. And this study obviously may not cover every potential method, but we hope that there will be one that works for each of the road managers that are going to use this study. We hope this is used as a guideline and not a mandate for one treatment over the other. And we also hope that we provided a supporting document that each of you road managers feels you can take to your governing bodies to help justify the right applications, and maybe even help justify a line item in next year's fiscal budget for getting some from dust abatement budgeted. So that concludes our results, but how do we use the results and information? Not every site and situation is covered, but this document attempted to acknowledge the variables that affect selection of one dust abatement product over the other. And some of these variables are listed here. We talked about budget. Do you budget for capital maintenance? Do you have in-house capabilities, either equipment or resources? How far are you from urban areas? Do you have available local materials, and how much traffic do you have? So knowing these variables are what each of these sites have to deal with and have to play with in order to determine what's the most appropriate method. We wanted to provide a roadmap to selecting the right method. This flow chart that you're seeing here helps guide the end user through a series of yes/no questions to arrive at a dust abatement method. And I'm not going to go through each of the paths along this flow chart, but we hope that this is something that will be useful for the end user to support their decision for using a particular product or method. And just as end users will reach an end of the flow chart, so too have we reached the end of our own presentation. So I'm going to turn this presentation back to Mr. O'Brien for closing remarks. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for the presentation, guys. It's very informative, and just so everyone knows, the study is published on our website, so you can actually find the actual report there and go through it in detail. So hopefully that will be helpful for everyone. If you have questions, I think they've been open. I haven't seen any come in, but additional questions can also be forwarded to us through the info@cosef.org. And so as far as from the back, we will be providing webinars in the future. Those webinars will be looking at three that are planned right now. Will be an impact assessment of water infrastructure on the Valle de Juarez. It will provide just a review of, it's a case study of the implementation of infrastructure that has been developed there. Another study will be the quantification of climate change mitigation public policy options at a state level. Those are studies that are looking at state initiatives that are developed to address climate change and the economic impacts of those initiatives. And finally, there will be another traffic-related study which will look at, it's called Paving Coverage and Vehicle Count in Urban Areas Through Satellite Image Interpretation in Mexicali, Baja California. And that is basically a study looking at the use of satellite imagery to determine where paving coverage is needed and the quality of existing paving coverage, and just using satellite imagery to help guide traffic managers in looking at paving issues. So that's what we have. So goodbye.